I'm sure you've heard of the term employee engagement, and it often is used in a large organization setting. So, how does that apply in a small business or a startup environment with a smaller team? Hello, and welcome to Unlock HR with the D'Souza sisters. I'm Desma D'Souza,
And I'm Elrona D'Souza.
and today we're going to talk about a very vital aspect of people management, employee engagement. We're going to talk about how to create a great work environment that not only retains top talent, but also supports high performance. So let's get started.
Let's do it.
So let's just start at the beginning. How would you explain employee engagement from a small business or in a startup context?
So, the way I explain employee engagement is I ask them to picture this, right? Picture the scenario that every employee walking through the door is happy to be there.
Yeah.
And how do they show they don't mind the commute, they don't mind the challenge, they just want to come and do their best work.
Yeah.
That's what employee engagement at its core is all about.
Yeah.
Is like I love working where I'm working and I love to do what I get to do.
Yeah.
And this place brings out the best version of me.
Yeah.
So that for me is at its core employee engagement. It has a nice name, employee engagement, but it is because employees are engaged and driven very intrinsically to deliver their best work.
Yeah. The textbook definition is, employees are willing to go the extra mile when
Extra
they're
mile,
asked
yeah.
for. But when I think back to my own employment, right? For as long as I woke up in the morning and I looked forward to going to work, I felt very engaged. The day I didn't start looking forward to going to work, or started to think like I'm not feeling great, maybe I'm going to skip today, that's when the disengagement started. So I
Correct.
think, just very simply put, wake up in the morning, look forward to going into work. But also, we know it's crucial for success, but or for business success rather, but even more so in a small business, because there is just nowhere to hide, right? If one employee is disengaged, then you can feel it across the
Yeah, it
business.
literally has a ripple effect within the business. The good news is, and there is good news for small business owners, is statistically, small business are actually having more engaged employees than large organizations.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because the connectedness is strongly felt because the business owner is more accessible to them.
Yeah.
And they're able to get quicker decisions and more, they're able to feel the change happen and see the results of their own contribution.
Yeah.
So as a result, engagement is, definitely something that is there that can be built on and made even more stronger. And it becomes a competitive advantage for small businesses because
Yes.
their talent is what makes them stand out from their peers in the
Yeah.
industry. So it's not something that is a nice to have, I think. It is a must have that companies and business owners should, put time and resources towards that.
Yeah. And do you think there's a certain kind of employees that thrive in a small business environment versus those in a large organization?
I think so. I think there is a different set of. Also depends on employees' journey in their career as well.
Yeah.
I think the owner of Alibaba said work first, in a small business,
yeah.
before you go into a large business. When you start your career, start in a small business. And I can personally vouch for that because I started in a small business. I worked in a family-owned, female-led recruitment consultancy.
Yeah.
And I was so happy to come to work. I
Yeah.
even showed up every day. Like I even had you join me sometimes as well because it was just something that I could get everybody excited about
Yeah.
because I loved working there and I really got to bring the best version of myself in there because she was very good at articulating what she had plans for me and
Yeah.
I bought into that and they developed me as well.
Yeah.
So I really
That was
really
a true
worked.
start of your career?
That was a true launch of my career, and I always am grateful to that person, who in one interview decided that yeah, join my team. um,
But on the flip side, I actually started my career with a large
yeah,
organization.
yeah,
But I was very, very engaged from the beginning because I think it functioned as a small business, i.e., they were at such an early stage of the business that there was a lot to do. And if you were willing to do it, or if you're willing to put in the effort, they didn't hesitate to give you something to do, even though if you were inexperienced. Like, there was a lot of things. Now when I think about it in hindsight, I'm like, why would they give me, why would they task me to do something like this? Because the impact of what I did could potentially be quite huge. But they trusted me with it back then. And I obviously, at the time, I didn't know what I was doing consciously, but I sort of figured it out. And that was a huge learning for me as well. So I think, there's area for both.
definitely. And I think the large organization that you had was also in a startup mode, so it
Yes,
was
it
very
was.
all hands on deck
Deck,
sort of
correct, correct.
attitude. So that got you the opportunity to participate in that. So I think that's all great. And large organizations also have the benefit for somebody who's coming new into the business to give them an environment to like learn each aspect of the business rather than being overwhelmed with everything all at
Yeah.
once. There's different personalities that work in different environments,
But I
right?
also say, like, employees, we sort of expect employee engagement to be led from the top. But I also think employees should own their own employability, right?
Always.
So you can't always expect your management to make sure that you are engaged. You have to find a way to invest in yourself, in your own sort of growth, development, take on assignments where you can stretch yourself a little bit, because I think that also adds to engagement. Now, what management can do, or leaders can do, or the business owners can do is support this, cross-functional experience. But I think, like, it's the employee engagement does not only sit with line managers.
See, it's a lot of employee engagement has to come from within an employee. Like they have to be eager to,
Like, driven a bit.
exactly. They have to be very driven, and that's where small businesses can give them that right environment for a driven employee, because then, the all options are open to you. If you're going to equate everything to, one or two ways of being recognized, then that might not necessarily be the
Yeah.
environment for you, and you have to be true to yourself. And management can create that environment for you, but you have to, you know yourself best, right? So if you're not true to yourself, then no matter what intervention, what initiative, employee engagement under the banner of employee engagement happens, it will not connect with you, it not
Yeah.
resonate with you. And that's important because employees, and you have so much of opportunities now and education out there to understand how to build the right mindset, how
Yeah.
to get real with yourself, how to introspect. And like these tools are not necessarily to be given by companies.
You
it's
can go
it's
out
you
and,
have to be a self learner, like a self starter and a
yeah.
self learner, like learn for yourself, grow your own self for
Yeah.
whatever opportunities that come across, and even at your work.
Yeah, yeah. You know, so what are some very clear symptoms of disengaged workforce?
So one of them I think you touched upon earlier is absenteeism.
Yeah.
Like a lot of companies don't often manage this well or even recognize that, but absenteeism is a sign of
Red flag.
a red flag of disengagement or emergence of disengagement. So those one day absences, the lateness that happens.
Tactical absences, especially when they happen before, after weekends, or
Correct.
yeah.
Yeah. So, or extended, public holidays and lateness and, or sluggishness at work as well. These are all red flags. And that's something you have to look at. It's not an individual person's necessarily reason that there are tools for that, but also just sit back and think like, why is this happening?
Yeah.
Is there something that's happening in the business that is
leading to
leading
this.
to this,
Yeah.
or and
Is this a person specific thing, or maybe like if you look back and look at a pattern, maybe it might be within a team or within one area of the business?
yeah, it could be, or it could be some a line manager there that is not, creating that right employment
Yeah.
experience. So it's not an employee issue, and it could be one employee in that team. But be open to the fact that there could be a number of reasons.
Yeah.
It could be a process. It could be it could be a person. It could be a system, or it could be someone else who is impacting that
Yeah.
person.
Yeah. What about turnover?
Turnover is another one that is a good indicator of disengagement. If employees are,
It's a strong indicator. It's not a good indicator, right?
I think it's almost absolute in terms of indicator. If the turnover is high, um, especially when you have like a 50, 60 size
Yeah.
organization, and you think that, oh, one or two people leaving is not, it's not normal. Like if you put it in percentages terms, it would fall into the higher side of turnover rate. And that's something to question as to why employees are leaving. The attrition rate definitely is a good indicator of disengagement. The other one is where you have conflict
Yeah.
in the organization, where you have, you'll see the emergence of processes being hindered because
Yeah.
process is not moving as seamlessly as possible because there's some disconnect and some so there could be a process realignment that is needed,
Yeah.
but it also could be person to person that there's been an issue, so that is also some level of disengagement that happens. If there are grievances being raised formally or informally, if you
Yeah.
hear about them, this is also another
Yeah.
reason, another way of showing disengagement with something. It
Yeah.
could not necessarily be with the business
I think
itself.
from my experience, like a lot of companies who have grown rapidly and um, organically get to a point where they start to see like these hints of disengagement by way of high turnover, absenteeism, and things like that. And a lot of times when we've gone and investigated, uh, findings have been like they don't have the foundations in place. And as you grow an organization, people look for structure because they don't want to be one among like 100 employees. They want to know what their employment experience becomes very different than like them having that airtime with the business owner directly. Because when you're a 100-person organization, in the grand scheme of things, it might not seem huge, but and it's still considered a small business, but it's not really small in the sense of operationally. You are, you can't still one single business owner can't manage the whole thing, right? You have to have a next layer in place. So these things then become even more apparent, and even more like the need to fix it is even stronger.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, engagement as the team, especially when you've grown faster than you have planned to grow, then there's a lot of catching up to be done as
Yeah.
well. And sometimes employees are, waiting to figure out what's going on. And they could be, saying, look, I'm unhappy, and
Yeah.
I'm not getting, it's not the same anymore. It doesn't feel like the organization I joined,
Yes,
like
exactly.
things have changed, or these sort of lines is basically that as an employee that is disengaged, like they were great performers at the beginning, and now their performance is a little
Has dipped.
has dipped. Then you can understand, like, is this one person issue, or is there a bigger challenge in here?
Yeah, I remember like, one of the initial clients that we had, they were exactly this company that were very successful, had grown over the past few years. I remember there was like even a long waiting time to get an appointment to see
Yeah.
one of their practitioners. And, we had, after we went in and we created the entire framework, they there were employees who had submitted their resignation that withdrew their resignation. Do you remember that?
Yeah, there were two people, right? That once we launched a communication plan where their screensavers were changed, and there was a message from the leadership and change is coming. These the two members rescinded their
Yeah.
resignation, and they said, "Look, I can see you're finally taking our
Yeah.
concern seriously, and there's something happening. So we're happy to stay back and be part of it."
Yeah, because they didn't it's not that they were unhappy with their employment per se. They just were like, it's not the company that I joined,
Yeah.
right? And now that they felt like actually there's things being put in place to make that experience positive again, I want to be part of this
Yeah.
journey.
And that brings me to another point. Like, as the organization is growing, right, employees also recognize that there is change to come. But if you're not going to communicate that change, then they are going to interpret it in their own way, or what they are familiar with, or what they can see. So it's not like they're going to always want to be in that original organization. They
Yeah.
also want to be part of the growth journey, but you have to, like, carry them, like take them as you grow, rather than just suddenly say, oh, we've grown and now we are, you can do something different to keep that engagement constant.
Yeah, yeah. So, what are some like tools to measure engagement? Let's say you have grown several, a few, you have organically grown over the years, and you're now a larger organization of, let's say, l- up to 100 people, but this can apply even to lesser number of people, even if you're like 20, 30 people. What are some tools that can be used to gauge employee engagement?
So there's some easy, quick ways to gauge engagement. You could have some initiatives. You can run a survey, which, there are many tools out there that can help you run a successful survey, and the results will speak and give you some information. There are always, people that will argue on both sides of the
Yeah.
objectivity of the survey or the success of a survey.
But you can
But
run
we're
this
talking
anonymously,
Yeah,
right?
but we're also talking about an organization that doesn't have employee engagement initiatives at the moment. So we have to start with some of the basics, and the
Yeah.
basics is a survey. And we've seen successes with surveys where people have given us true answers.
Yeah.
There's also opportunities to have focus groups, like bring a small group of people in, talk about some topics, and gauge their understanding of it. And you will be surprised when people have been given an opportunity and a safe space and the right environment, they're open to sharing because they know their employment is going to get better.
Yeah.
And we've never come out of a focus group where nobody has said anything,
Yeah.
you know.
I think, another thing is that's very important when you run these surveys, right? Is to actually do something with the results, because a lot of businesses will run a survey, so they'll make employees respond or take time to share their views, and they don't do one of two things. Either they don't give the results of the
Yeah.
survey because they're like, oh my god, a majority of my employees, like the engagement is not high as high as I want it to be, so they take it quite personally, so they're like, oh, we won't share. Or two is they discount whatever feedback has been given. They're like, no, 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 this is not
Almost
important. Yeah,
dismissive.
yeah,
Yeah.
like, no, this is not important, I'm not going to focus on it. And I feel like that would disengage employees even more.
Yeah, so I don't think the second round of survey will have that much of participation. Definitely important is to communicate the results, and also like share with them a plan of what can be done. And everybody recognizes not everything can be solved all at once, but if you have the willingness, the eagerness, and some sort of demonstrated action towards it, they will be happy to wait and see what the outcomes are.
Yeah. What about in hybrid environments, or where you have remote teams? How does one go about ensuring that employees are engaged in these
Yeah.
scenarios?
I think when engagement in hybrid environments, I think a lot of uh, reasons is, if an employee has been in a hybrid environment, it takes them, there's a level of understanding that this environment is not traditional. So and
Yeah.
there are benefits to being away from work, that you're able to have a better work life balance perhaps, or may not be. Like some people argue
Yeah,
during the
that is just a
lockdown
myth.
that you're constantly working, you
Yeah.
really don't have a start and end time. So if you have the right hybrid environment where you recognize start and end times and everything, then people are a little more engaged in there, because they have a better work life
Yeah.
balance. But that does not mean that because their absence is not the reason why you don't have to engage with them or connect with them. So some of the same one-to-ones is very important for such team members. invite them to work or some events, let them represent you at an exhibition or
Yeah.
visit a conference. All
Yeah.
of these sort of initiatives help keep that connection, and that something is being done for them. I remember there was one company that had their team work on a remote basis, but also recognize there's a fatigue that tends to kick in when you're constantly at home.
Yeah.
So they had taken a subscription in a business center, in a work center, like a WeWork or
Like a
something,
co-working
like a
space.
co-working space. It's
Yeah.
like, look, if ever you need a different place, rather than going and looking for an environment, we've taken a subscription here. Feel free to come
Oh,
and use the
nice.
services. So they also felt like they had somewhere to go without them having to look
Yeah.
after themselves.
Yeah.
For hybrid, there's a lot of companies, and including small companies actually, that help with setting up an ergonomic space for them.
Yeah.
Proper workstation management, same as they would do at the office. They offer that at their home or wherever they've chosen to work. So all of these sort of mechanisms help with that engagement.
Yeah.
They make sure that onboarding is done right, especially when they're hiring.
Yeah.
And also, like, there's so many other initiatives nowadays. There's like your virtual coffees,
Yeah.
your casual conversations. You have Slack channels, all
Yeah.
of these sort of spaces that have been created that help you build those relationships.
Yeah.
And I think building relationships with people away from their line work,
Yeah.
like building communities based on common interests,
Yeah.
will help with that with hybrid workers as well.
Yeah. And like, I think again, it all goes back to kind of that line manager relationship, right? If you haven't seen our previous episode, go check it out on Line Manager Fundamentals. It tells you all about how to be most effective as a line manager. But yeah, coming back to this, right? It is very important that you as a line manager should be able to gauge what level of engagement your team members are. Actually, I remember in my one of my previous employments, my line manager said to me, it was interesting that when I started, I was always full of ideas, and I was like, let's do this and let's do this, and he was quite happy, and he's like, okay, go, do it, run with it. And then, like, a few years later, the ideas stopped coming. And I was not aware of it. And he, in one of our one-to-ones, he said, is everything okay? And I'm like, yeah, everything's grand. I'm great. And then he's like, I feel, and he pointed this out. He's like, a couple of years ago when you started, you were full of ideas, and I've seen that there is not as much coming from you. Is that because you've run out of ideas? Because I highly doubt it. Or like, what's going on? And although I wasn't aware of it, I was kind of burnt out, but I wasn't aware of it. And that was a telltale sign that he was kind of, he noticed, and he brought it to my attention, and even I wasn't aware of it. And then, he was saying, like, he's like, okay, let's look at, maybe do you need to take some more time off? But he brought it to my attention. And it was not that I was disengaged per se. I was just close to getting burnt out. And, that could be also a contributor to disengagement, right?
You brought me to another, like you said, like, what are some of the symptoms?
Yeah.
Right? When people don't take time off,
Yeah.
and you're not making a conscious effort of people taking time off, then disengagement may not happen the year they haven't taken time off, but over the years,
yeah.
that builds up. So they will be connected to their work, but they're not connected to your organization, and that sometimes becomes a challenge as well. So
Yeah.
You think that leave is an entitlement, but it is also a benefit to an organization when all people are well rested and come back healthier and happier.
Yeah. Yeah. How can small businesses tailor their initiatives to address the small team sizes?
I think we did one post or somewhere where we came up with like 10 different ideas of employee engagement for free. And, a lot of them had to do with, just coming up with things that will just recognize them on the spot. So
Yeah.
like on-time recognition or live real-time recognition, sort of initiatives, giving somebody like peers recognizing each other,
Yeah.
saying, that person did a great job. You spoke in the last episode about Employee of the Month, I think.
Yeah.
Even those sort of initiatives, that is there. So there's initiatives that you can do at an individual level. There are initiatives you can do at a team level, and there's
Yeah.
initiatives you can do at the higher, the larger organizational level. And there's something to be done at each of them, right?
Yeah.
So at the individual level, it could be your Employee of the Month recognition,
Yeah.
or team member success recognition, a high five sort of peer-to-peer recognition, line managers, some healthy competition
Yeah.
in like health and fitness,
Yeah.
well-being initiatives, which you could be participating with. Dubai has a lot of them in the check out Dubai calendar, or
Yeah.
the 30 by 30, so many other initiatives, like participate that. There was one organization that we worked with, and they had a hybrid environment, and they realized so many of their members do trekking.
Oh.
So what they did is they got them T-shirts to say, like, build a community, will support you.
Oh,
And so
nice.
this team, they never see each other except at treks.
That's very cool, actually.
So like that works. So
Another, I read this in a book, right? A company was, I don't know if it was I can't remember if it was disengagement or what was the reason, but the solution that they had was provided with, or not provided, was recommended to them, was to encourage all employees to start the day with gratitude. And how they did this is every morning, like when they logged into their system, they had to do one of two things. So one is, I think there was a mechanism by which they had to record what they are grateful for that day or the previous day or whatever. And the second one was they had to send some kind of recognition to at least one of their colleagues.
oh wow.
And initially, when they spoke about gratitude, the management they were like, this is so cheesy, like, what, this is so kind of like, we don't even know how
What
to
do we say? We can't say the same thing every day.
And
or
they
something.
thought this, right? But they're like, look, let's just try it.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, right? And the results were outstanding. Like, it
Wow.
was astonishing. Even this, tiny element of gratitude made employees recognize that actually, it gave them a different perspective. They would come, like, almost think on their way to work, like, what am I going to put in what I'm grateful for, right? Which made them think of what they're grateful for.
And also they noticed colleagues, like if somebody's doing a good job, because maybe previously they didn't really notice. They just, went on with it, okay. But now they have to make a note, take a note so that they can recognize that.
And that kind of, there was a significant, again, this was a long time ago I read this book, but there was a significant change in the measures on the output of when they measured before and after.
There's also a company that I saw on TikTok where they have 2-minute meditation. So the business owner comes to the floor and they all together have a 2-minute quiet time. Like, just close your eyes and, breathe. And that just 2 minutes of like complete distraction-free minute has actually improved in their employees' outputs.
Another thing I think in Dubai is we are blessed with diversity, right? So celebrating diversity within your team is also a great way to make employees feel valued. Their culture is important. Everybody is very proud of where they come from, right? So giving them an opportunity to showcase this to the rest of their organization is another lovely way to.
There was in one of the previous companies that I worked for, this something that connected everybody, being from a very diverse culture, was the Flag Day.
Oh, okay.
The UAE national, there's a Flag Day that happens towards the end of the year, and there was a team that we had a group of employees come together to run that event. It was not an HR did the event, that team did the event, and basically they organized the flag, the chocolates in the flag color and everything. And because we all love the city so much, and we keep saying our heart is Emirati, right? That just builds such a good feeling on that day, and for a few days to come after that as well. So like, these are opportunities for employees and companies to just build on that momentum. Whatever is there outside, like just build on it.
I think creativity is the key, right? Like if you
Absolutely.
think about it, there's lots of different things you can do to support your employees. But you you have to think employee engagement is part of, is not an initiative separate to employment. Like you can't say like, okay, now we're going to have an employee engagement initiative, whereas the rest of the work experience is an overall poor experience, right?
True. And I think, that employee initiative or the engagement should be like a constant feeling. Like, there needs to be something that is all there all the time. It doesn't have to be at an initiative, there's a high, and then
Yeah.
everything else is low, and then again there's a high. Then you're not going to get the constant engagement that you're looking for.
Yeah. How do you think small businesses can address some barriers to engagement?
Barriers to engagement in terms of accessibility.
I think barriers to engagement, like what stops employees from, like what stops the engagement. So for instance, something that I can think about is if you don't have, regular one-to-ones with your team members, that's a sure shot barrier to having an engaged employee, because it's not about all the bells and whistles, right?
Yes.
Just having that regular one-to-one, making sure that you and your relationship with your employee is taken care of, is like a sure shot way of ensuring that they are engaged.
I think the other barriers is where when employees make requests, right? Whatever they are, like they are addressed in a quick and prompt manner rather than them being, even if the answer is no.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a yes all the
Yes.
time, but giving an answer back and closing that loop is always beneficial and but if you don't do it, it is a barrier of building that disengagement.
Yeah. Do you think there are any particular metrics that employers can focus on, or small business owners can sort of focus on to determine or establish the engagement levels? Like we spoke about absenteeism, turnover.
So yeah, your attrition rate, your absenteeism definitely are some metrics to be used. The surveys will give you another score, right? Your net promoter score, whether they would recommend your company
as a great place to work,
great place to work
Yeah.
or not. I think this is a little off the normal, but like your customer service reviews and your
Yeah.
ratings also tell you a little bit about your employee engagement, because if your employees are doing a stellar job, you will see their names being even mentioned
Yes,
in the reviews.
absolutely. That's a great point.
Because that's how much of a recall they have created with your customers. So, that itself is like a good way to say, like, are my employees engaged? Because otherwise my customers would not be like,
Yeah.
talking about it.
Exactly. Okay, so I think let's do our rapid fire wrap up.
Sure,
For
let's go for it.
this episode. All right, go ahead.
Okay.
You can start.
So I'll start with the last one is, be conscious of what are the barriers in your organization that is leading to employees being disengaged, and
Yeah.
then start to work and create an action plan to like overcome those barriers
Yeah.
or remove those barriers.
Yeah. I'd say employee engagement is not reserved for the large organizations.
Definitely
You
not.
can find creative ways to promote engagement within your own teams.
And I think this is not what we spoke about, but having clear job responsibilities and roles will help with understanding each person's contribution to the business. That way, there is clear understanding of how they're being measured, what performance they're being measured, and how they're delivering. So that itself helps in the starting point of engagement.
Yeah. Fourth, I think, is if you do run employee engagement surveys, pay attention to the results you get from it. Like, do something about the results. First of all, communicate the results to say this is what you've said, and then like talk about that action plan, which is really, really important.
Yes. And talking about the results, don't dismiss them, even if they're not good. Take that opportunity, because it is your business they're talking about.
Yeah.
Use that free information that they've given you to make a difference, and then enjoy the benefits of it.
Yeah. And I think that wraps up 5.
Yes, I think it does.
All right. This concludes our episode on employee engagement and how can apply in a small business. We hope you're inspired and you walk away with ideas of how you can engage your own team and implement some of the strategies that we discussed in the session in your team straight away. We hope you have liked, subscribed, and hit the bell notification so you find out when we release the next episode. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to leave us a review. Let us know in the comments. Tell us how we're doing. Give us feedback. We would love to hear from you to do better and be better.
And one last thing is, if you've come across or you've experienced a very creative way of how your business or your company has, done an employee engagement, please share in the comments so that others can also use them.
And on that note, see you in the next episode.
Ciao.
As we wrap up today's episode, we want to extend a huge thank you to our sponsor, Pacific Prime Insurance Brokers. With 19 offices globally, Pacific Prime are an award-winning, trusted insurance partner for businesses and individuals requiring any type of insurance solution. They specialize in providing unbiased and reliable insurance advice to simplify your process of finding the right insurance solutions for your business and your employees. So whether you need comprehensive medical coverage or any other insurance solution, their 150-member team in Dubai alone are always ready to assist you. You can check the show notes below for a link to their website and a dedicated email address just for you to reach out to them.